Be the Talk, episode 279, featuring Lida Citroën. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Lida Citroën. Lida, are you ready to rock?
I've always been ready. Yes, Nathan.
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to say that again because it's just one of those days. Lida, are you ready to talk?
I am ready to talk. I've been ready to do that always as well. So
Lida Citroën is an international reputation management and brand specialist who helps individuals develop, enhance, and or repair their personal brand to stand out in increasingly competitive global markets. Lida Citroën, welcome to the talk.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm excited to be here.
Your talk is called The Power of Gratitude and Generosity, Serving Those Who Have Served. I love this talk, and I'm a little bit biased because I'm right outside of Philadelphia broadcasting this. You had a major brand pivot of your own brand, and you go into your career and some of the twists and the turns of it, and you came out of that basically, just to summarize your talk, because we're going to go beyond your talk, you wanted to come to the point where you could serve other people, literally, who have served, are veterans, and helping them do probably the most difficult mission of all, because they're not following orders when they step into civilian life and they transition. Now they have to be their own boss, and they have to completely go counter to their training. They have to be bold. They have to talk about themselves instead of the group. And so many other lessons that really apply to all of us, because many of us have a hard time promoting ourselves or talking about ourselves. And we all need to have that distinction of being able to talk and shine the light on ourselves, especially in a job interview situation. That's a little bit of the thunder. Lida, we're going to go beyond the talk. Take us there right now.
Well, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, and that is, as the world becomes noisier and as it becomes busier, we have to take the burden, if you will, to know what our value proposition is, be able to articulate that value to an audience that cares, and not everybody cares. So part of branding and reputation management is figuring out who is your target audience, what do they care about, and what about you lines up with that. And yes, as you mentioned, people coming out of the military, that's not their training. Their training is not to differentiate and, stand in their own voice in the way that civilians do. So it was a great opportunity to give a TED Talk on a topic that I'm passionate about, which is serving those who serve.
And thank you for starting right here in Philadelphia. That was part of the talk. That was the part that really got my antenna up, and just powerful stuff. So my question to you, I mean, this is really, you do brand management and branding and all of this for, outside of that niche. This is specifically about how you have been giving back of your valuable limited time, because these people have served our country. They've put everything on the line for us. So my question to you is, you talk about why this is so difficult for military people to, in a new world with different values and where you have to tout yourself and to avoid being looked over. How do you describe that? Here's a question that it's taken me 2 hours to get to. How do you frame these missions for these veterans who are transitioning back to civilian life? How do you frame that so that they're able to tackle that as a mission instead of some kind of a taboo as that would be in their native military situation? Culture.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head, and that is, you do have to frame it, right? This is the most trainable workforce of individuals we have in this country. And our nation has spent billions of dollars training them. So to think they can't be trained to do something different would be a mistake. So what I do is I frame it up that, yes, you are moving from one culture, one community, one set of protocols and rules into something very different. And as a civilian who has no military connection personally, I'm able to reflect what the other side of the table is thinking about. In the last few years, I've been doing a lot of work with employers who are trying to hire from this talent pool, who are frustrated with, resumes that don't make sense and their inability to communicate their value. So I can reflect that too. And there's not a lot of resistance. I mean, sure, they don't love the concept of self-promotion. They don't love the concept, and I say they generally for veterans, they don't love the concept of networking. They roll their eyes when I talk about networking. But they're realists, and they understand, that as a civilian, I've been spending my whole career learning these skills, and they need to learn these skills in order to adapt and thrive in this environment. And I find them very receptive and very quick to grasp the concepts.
I loved how you really got into the meat of what they face. I mean, these are people that, I mean, we're not, whether you're a Navy SEAL or any military person, their job is to follow orders and to complete the mission. And what a powerful skill set that is. And at the same time, those of us that, anyone who has a personal brand, whether you're an entrepreneur in a corporation or entrepreneur outside on your own, you've got to add that skill set of also creating your own mission and then following through. And I don't know about you or anyone else out there, but it can be really, really challenging to do both of those things and not just simply follow orders and complete someone else's mission, but to also creatively create something according to your values or the needs or whatever, and then follow through. I don't know if you talk about that or touch on that with people, but that is something that is, I think, common challenge to all of us. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a couple things. First of all, that's why I named the book that I wrote for transitioning military service members. I called it Your Next Mission because I want them to think about this as part of their career, right? I would also challenge you that they don't all follow orders, right? And not to say that they're rogue, but there are those who give the orders and those whose job it is to execute on those orders. So, and we find that sometimes is very fluid. Now, you don't want a lot of entrepreneurial thinking on the battlefield. It's risky. So there's definitely strategy, but there's a lot of improvisation and a lot of creativity. And we sometimes forget that when we think about our nation's veterans, that they've learned to adapt and overcome and be resilient and be creative in how they solve these problems. So that's very transferable. The other thing you mentioned is everybody has a personal brand. So whether you're an entrepreneur, introvert, extrovert, whether you're on Facebook or not, every person has a personal brand if you think about it like a reputation. The power of what I try to talk about is that you can take control of that. You can manage it and leverage it for your advantage in an authentic way, as opposed to sort of building a brand by default, whether you're a veteran or a civilian.
Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Lida Citroën. Her talk is called The Power of Gratitude and Generosity, Serving Those Who Have Served. And we're going to hear more from Lida in just a moment when we return with the Blitz Round. Hey, Talk Universe. I hope you've been enjoying today's episode with today's guest. But you know what? Many people want more than that. Many people that listen to Be the Talk actually want to give a talk. And if that's you, you're not alone. Listen to the rest of this podcast. At the end, I'll have a free resource for you just for listening. And we're back with Lida Citroën. It is time for the Blitz Round. I'm about to ask Lida a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and the performance of her recent talk. Lida, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. First question. It's almost like a mission kind of thing right here. We're talking military either-or question. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I applied. Just
like it seems the rest of us. So that's a mission in itself to get accepted, my friends. Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
Not a memorizer. Been doing this way too long. It's probably memorized, but there's so much improvisation.
What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you prepare?
To know that I was going out on the TED stage to represent a community that was counting on me to deliver an important message. I felt that responsibility and that burden, but also the joy that they were all with me. That's actually the part at the end of the talk where I got a little choked up, is realizing that they were all standing on that stage with me.
Well, that's a powerful why, because you're representing, in a sense, you're representing, the people behind the mission, your mission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, were you an opener? Were you a closer, or were you in between?
I was in between, and I followed a guy who literally fell apart on stage. So was standing back. They took me out of the green room, standing backstage. They had no idea when he was going to finish. They said, just hang out here. When he walks off, it's your turn. Go have a TED Talk. So it was different. Well,
hey, congratulations. You were on mission. So, this is something we talk about in my Get Accepted course. There are all kinds of little dynamics. We don't have time to talk too much about that, but that's almost like a military mission. If somebody before you has fallen apart, that organizer and every person in those seats and the team and all the other speakers, they're like, Lida has to pull it together and bring us out. So what did you do in that moment to, or did you discount it and just do what you were going to do anyway and not even think about it?
I think you discount it and you get out there, you stand on the red dot and you give 100% for 12 minutes and you hope you did a good job. And we had a lot of veterans in the audience because they all started nodding their head as I was talking. And so that gave me a lot of reassurance, but just, it's a chance of a lifetime. So you take advantage.
Oh my gosh. So, here's my next question. And okay. you can't repeat what you just said. So besides the person in front of you, having a difficult time on stage, what else was the most or the second most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk? I guess everything else is a distant second after.
That was a doozy. I had a couple people really change up their talks, and which, makes you start second guessing. Should I change up mine? We do a dress rehearsal the day before, and I just decided, go with what you know. And I had a lot of support, and I felt like I was just but I saw people changing it up and trying to do things differently in the moment. That threw me off a little bit for a second.
Well, good for you for not letting it throw you off, for more than a second. And Talk Universe, part of the preparation for this, and part of the reason that so many people are hiring coaches, and rightfully so, is so that they can really be prepared. And when I don't know, was this a small group? Were there like 8 other speakers, or were there 20 other what was the size of this event, Lida?
I think they had 14.
Okay.
A lot of death talk. It was interesting. People that had lost a child, people that were talking about. And so, that was probably the other thing that kind of threw us off, is it got really heavy really fast. And then the guy before me had his meltdown, and it was odd. But you know what? I didn't care about any of that. I cared about making sure my 12 minutes were what I needed to be able to deliver this message, because I knew that the men and women in uniform who'd, helped me over the years understand the differences between the military and civilian culture. They were watching to see what I was going to do. And the level of support I got afterwards, they still share that TED Talk, and it goes viral every time they do.
Well, and it's a great talk. So I had no idea watching your talk, and we're about to show you where you can go to watch that talk, Talk Universe. Stick with us, in just a few moments. But you have no idea the drama that surrounded the content, the death talks and the bereavement. I've interviewed a few people that have given those kinds of talks on this show, and I've interviewed MCs on BeTheTalk, because the job of a TED Talk MC is even more difficult than a normal MC, and their job is to keep the room together, keep the room connected, and keep a little bit of forward moving, lighter energy in the room. That's really their job, in my opinion. I can talk about this because I actually got the bat phone rang, TMI, but the bat phone rang. I had 2 days to actually pull it together to MC a TEDx event that I spoke at a year before. So this is a little bit close to home right now. You got to have that forward moving energy. But anyway, hey, Talk Universe, we are about to tell you where you can go to check out Lida's talk. And we've been enjoying this talk with Lida Citroën. Her talk is called The Power of Gratitude and Generosity, Serving Those Who Have Served. And she certainly did serve those who have served in the room as well as outside the room in the YouTube audience, because she stuck with the mission and she landed that talk in the middle of it. Sounds like all kinds of crazy drama going on in that event. And that's part of the reason that we have this resource of Be the Talk. We talk about these things that nobody else would ever. I mean, can you imagine how taboo and almost disrespectful seeming it's that? We're not disrespecting. This is how it is. But we want to talk about these issues because we want you to give your talk to change the world. Now, anyhow, you can go to find out more about Lida. You can go to our website and watch her talk. We're going to have a link to it right on BeTheTalk.com, our show notes, as well as, very important, you want to go to Lida360.com, Lida, the number 360, Lida360.com, and you're going to be able to, she has a store there and some resources, including the book that she mentioned. You want to check it out, Talk Universe. And we're going to be back in just a moment with Lida Citroën for the final word of advice for you, Talk Universe. Hey, Talk Universe, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you want to give the talk to change the world, but you don't know how or even where to start, no problem at all. Go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted for my new 5-day email course that'll show you how. Absolutely free. Just go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted. And we're back with Lida Citroën. It is time for the 10-second final word of advice.
You know, my word of advice for anybody, no matter where you are, is be yourself. And that is easier said than done, but figure it out. It's worth spending the time to figure out who you are, because the rest of the world is moving too fast to spend the time to figure out what makes you special.
Lida Citroën, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you, Nathan. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.